Sold. The auctioneer's hammer struck the wooden table. Clara's heart jumped. Her 5 younger brothers and sisters stood beside her in a tight line, their dusty clothes shaking in the cold morning wind. Their father, Silas, stood behind them with his arms crossed. Then a man from the crowd laughed. "Who buys 6 children?" Another man shook his head. "They'll eat more than they'll ever earn." Clara lowered her eyes. She had heard worse from her father. Silas grabbed her arm. "Stand straight," he growled. "You're being sold." The youngest boy began to cry. Clara quickly pulled him close. "Don't cry, Tommy. Stay with me." The auctioneer raised his voice. "6 children together. Who wants them?" Nobody answered. The crowd grew quiet. Then a horse suddenly pushed through the people. A tall cowboy stepped down from the saddle. His black hat covered most of his face. Dust covered his boots and long coat. He walked toward the auction table without saying a word. Silas looked him over. "You buying?" The cowboy looked at the 6 children. Then he looked back at Silas. "How much?" A few men laughed. The auctioneer stared at him. "For all 6. "All 6. The laughter stopped. The cowboy reached into his coat and placed a heavy bag of coins on the table. Silas's eyes widened. "That's more than they're worth," he said. The cowboy's voice became cold. "I didn't ask what they're worth." The crowd went silent. The auctioneer slowly counted the money. "Sold." Clara stared at the stranger. She expected him to take their chains, give them orders, or tell them what work they would do. Instead, the cowboy turned toward her. "My name is Caleb." Clara said nothing. Caleb looked at the little children. "You hungry?" The youngest boy nodded. Caleb removed his coat and wrapped it around him. Several people in the crowd stared. Someone whispered, "That cowboy's gone soft." Another man laughed. Caleb ignored them. Then Silas stepped forward. "They belong to me until you pay." Caleb slowly turned around. "I paid." Silas smiled cruelly. "Then they're yours." Caleb looked at the children again. "No," he said quietly, "they belong to nobody." Clara's eyes filled with tears. For the first time in years, someone had spoken about them like they were human beings. Then Caleb faced Silas. "And if I ever see you hurt them again." He paused. The smile disappeared from Silas's face. Caleb finished softly, "You'll wish you hadn't." No one laughed anymore. The ranch stood far from town, surrounded by dry grass, old fences, and endless brown hills. When Caleb brought the 6 children home, they walked behind him without speaking. They expected a hard life. Their father had taught them that kindness always had a price. Caleb opened the ranch house door. "Choose your beds," he said. The children stared at him. Clara frowned. "What work do you want us to do?" "Tonight," Caleb asked. She nodded. "Nothing." The children looked at each other. Caleb pointed toward the kitchen. "There's stew on the stove. Eat before it gets cold." The little ones ran to the table. Clara stayed where she was. She watched Caleb carefully. He placed wood in the fireplace, filled cups with water, and left extra blankets beside the children's beds. He never shouted. He never raised a hand. Still, Clara did not trust him. That night, she woke to the sound of footsteps. She quietly opened the bedroom door. Caleb was walking through the dark hallway with a rifle in his hand. Clara froze. He opened the front door and looked outside. Nothing moved except the tall grass. Then he closed the door. The next morning, Clara found him fixing a broken fence. "Why did you buy us?" she asked. Caleb stopped hammering. "I didn't buy you. You paid for us. I paid your father to get you away from him." Clara stared at him. Why? Caleb looked toward the empty hills. My family is gone. His voice became quiet. I had a little girl once. Clara said nothing. She got sick during winter. I rode for help, but the snow was too deep. By the time I returned, she was gone. He lowered his eyes. I couldn't save her. For the first time, Clara saw pain behind his hard face. Then a gunshot exploded. Bang! The kitchen window shattered. The children screamed. Caleb moved faster than Clara had ever seen. He pushed the children behind the wall and raised his rifle. Another bullet struck the wooden door. Stay down, he shouted. Caleb rushed outside. Clara crawled toward the broken window and looked into the darkness. A rider was escaping toward the hills. Caleb fired once, but the rider vanished behind the trees. He walked back slowly. Something was lying near the fence. A small piece of red cloth. Caleb picked it up. His face suddenly changed. Clara saw fear in his eyes. What's wrong? She whispered. Caleb looked toward the distant road. That belonged to your father. The children became silent. Their new home was no longer safe. For 3 days, nobody came to the ranch. But Caleb knew they were being watched. Every morning, he found fresh horse tracks near the fence. One night, the barn door was open, even though he had locked it himself. Then the horses suddenly began to panic. Clara woke to their loud cries. She ran outside and found Caleb standing beside the barn with his rifle. Someone was here, he said. Who? Clara whispered. Caleb looked into the darkness. I don't know. The next morning, Clara went into the barn to find a missing bucket. While moving an old wooden box, she heard a hollow sound beneath her feet. She stopped. She knocked on the floor. Knock, knock. It sounded empty underneath. Clara pulled away a loose board. Beneath it was a small iron box covered in dirt. She carried it to Caleb. He opened it slowly. Inside were old papers, a faded map, and several gold coins. Caleb unfolded one of the papers. His face became pale. What is it? Clara asked. He read the letter again. This land was stolen. Clara stepped closer. The letter named a rich landowner, Harlan Reed. Years ago, Harlan had taken land and money from poor families by using false papers. Then Clara saw another name. Silas. Caleb nodded. Your father worked for him. Clara's stomach turned. So father knew about this. He knew everything. A sudden noise came from outside. Caleb grabbed his rifle. The children froze. A horse screamed near the barn. Caleb moved to the window and looked out. 3 riders stood near the fence. Then more appeared behind them. Clara counted 6 men. They were armed. One rider shouted, "Bring us the papers." Caleb's face became hard. Take the children to the cellar. Clara grabbed the younger ones. No, she said, I'm staying. You're not fighting. You saved us, Clara said. We won't leave you. A gunshot cracked through the night. Wood splintered beside Caleb's head. He fired back. The children screamed and ran toward the cellar. Then Clara noticed something behind an old shelf. A narrow wooden door. She pulled it open. Behind it was a dark tunnel. Caleb, she shouted. He looked over. What is that? I don't know. Clara stepped inside. Cold air rushed past her face. She saw old footprints in the dirt. Then she noticed something scratched into the wall. A single word. Town. Her eyes widened. This goes to town. Caleb understood immediately. Take the children, he said. Get the sheriff. But what about you? Caleb loaded his rifle. "I'll hold them here." Clara took the children into the tunnel. Behind them, another gunshot echoed through the ranch. Then the tunnel became completely dark. Clara ran through the dark tunnel with the 5 children behind her. She could hear gunshots shaking the ground above them. "Keep moving," she whispered. The youngest boy began to cry. "Caleb will be okay," Clara said, though fear filled her heart. At last they saw moonlight ahead. Clara pushed open the wooden door and ran into town. She rushed into the sheriff's office. "Please, you have to help him." The sheriff stood up. "Who?" "Caleb. They attacked the ranch." Clara placed the old papers and map on his desk. The sheriff read them. His face changed. "Harlan Reed," he whispered. "He is there," Clara said. "He has armed men with him." The sheriff grabbed his gun belt. "Get the horses." Within minutes, the sheriff and several armed men rode toward the ranch. Meanwhile, Caleb stood alone in the yard. Blood ran down his arm, but he still held his rifle. Harlan Reed stepped forward with a pistol. "You should have given me the papers." Caleb looked at him. "I'd rather die." Then Silas stepped from behind the barn. He pointed his gun at Caleb. "You always were a fool." Caleb raised his rifle. Before either man could fire, the sheriff's voice thundered across the yard. "Drop your weapons." Harlan turned. Sheriff's men surrounded the ranch. Silas tried to run, but 2 deputies caught him. Harlan was arrested. The gunfire finally stopped. Clara ran toward Caleb. "You're hurt." Caleb smiled weakly. "It's only a scratch." She hugged him. For a moment, nobody spoke. The truth soon spread across the territory. Harlan had stolen land and money from many families, and Silas had helped him. People came to the ranch expecting Caleb to demand more money or revenge. Instead, he shocked everyone. He called the 6 children together. "You're free," he told them. Clara looked confused. "Free to go." Caleb shook his head. "Free to choose." He pointed toward the ranch house. "If you want to stay, this is your home." The children stared at him. The youngest boy ran forward and hugged his legs. Clara began to cry. "You really mean it?" Caleb nodded. "I lost my family once. I won't lose another." Years later, people still told the story. They said a cowboy had bought 6 children at an auction. But that was not the truth. Caleb had not bought them to own them. He had paid to set them free. And across the West, that simple act became a legend.